It was just past midnight in Santa Fe, and the cold was sharper than usual. A thin winter wind curling around the faded adobe houses, pressing up against the windows like a silent plea. Detective Madison Carter gripped the steering wheel of her patrol car with tired hands, rolling her neck to chase away the ache. Her shift was finally over, but her mind was restless, heavy with the weight of 100 little heartbreaks she'd witnessed that week alone. All she wanted was the comfort of her couch, and maybe the hum of a late-night talk show. She never saw herself as anyone's hero, just someone trying to hold the line in a city that never quite slept. As she turned off a dimly lit side street, headlights sweeping over cracked pavement and sleeping cars, something caught her eye. A flash of movement in the rearview mirror. Madison blinked, thinking maybe it was a trick of the shadows, some wind-blown trash or a stray cat. But then she heard it. A desperate, high-pitched yelp cutting through the silence, raw with panic. She slowed, curiosity winning out over exhaustion. There, bounding after her patrol car, was a German shepherd puppy, or what was left of one. The pup was filthy, ribs showing beneath matted fur, eyes wide and wild with hunger and fear. Its gait was lopsided, one back paw barely touching the ground. Still, it ran with all it had, chasing the only moving thing on the street, a silent plea for help. Madison's heart kicked. She pulled over, engine idling, watching as the puppy staggered closer, tail tucked, but determination burning in its eyes. She opened her door, bracing herself. "Hey there, buddy. Easy. I'm not gonna hurt you." The pup hesitated, whining, and then, as if it couldn't take another step, collapsed at her feet. Its chest heaved. Madison crouched, careful to keep her hands visible. She saw a battered collar, pink once, now gray with grime. Kneeling on the frozen asphalt, she slipped her fingers under the collar, searching for a tag. Instead, she found a scrap of paper, damp and nearly illegible, tucked beneath the cracked leather. She squinted in the flickering streetlight, reading the shaky scrawl, "Help, my brother is sick, no food, no water, apt 12B. A jolt ran through her, shock, then a spike of fear. She looked up and down the empty street, the world suddenly too quiet, too expectant. Madison's hands trembled as she grabbed her radio. "Dispatch, this is Carter. I've got an emergency, possible child in distress. Request backup at..." She rattled off the location, voice tight, adrenaline sharpening her exhaustion to a razor's edge. With hands still shaking, Madison shrugged off her jacket and bundled the shivering puppy inside, pressing it against her chest. The pup whimpered, nose nuzzling her chin, clinging to her like she was the last safe thing on earth. She slid back into the driver's seat, mind racing. In her 10 years on the force, she'd seen a lot. Drunks, brawlers, runaways. But there was something about this dog's desperate chase, the plea in that scrap of paper, that dug deep. Maybe it was the way the city lights flickered off the ice, making everything look fragile. Or maybe it was the faint memory of her own childhood. The empty nights, the ache of loneliness, the hope that someone would notice. She pressed her foot to the gas, headlights slicing through the darkness as she sped toward the address. The streets blurred past, silent except for the occasional howl of the wind and the frantic thud of her own heart. She called the fire department, requested paramedics, anything, anyone who could help. "Possible child neglect, medical emergency," she said, forcing calm into her voice. But her mind spun with questions. How long had the kids been alone? Who left them? Was there time to save them? She turned onto a crumbling side road, scanning the numbers painted on doors. 10A, 10B, 12A, and finally 12B, a squat, peeling apartment building, windows dark except for one, faintly lit with a yellow glow. Madison parked crookedly, not caring about rules now. She grabbed her flashlight, tucking the puppy under her arm, and raced up the broken concrete steps. Her breath clouded the air, and the only sound was the frantic scratching of the puppy as it whimpered, desperate to get inside. She reached the door and paused, heart hammering. Every instinct screamed caution. Could be drugs, could be a trap. But then she heard it. A weak, muffled cough, the kind that comes from deep in the lungs, and a small voice whispering, "Rocky, is that you?" That was all it took. Madison banged on the door. "Police, open up!" No answer. She tried the handle, locked. Without a second thought, she braced her shoulder and shoved, splintering the frame. The door swung open, revealing the first glimpse of the nightmare inside. But before she could take it in, before she could see what waited in the gloom, Madison's mind was already racing, heart pounding, 1,000 worst-case scenarios unfurling in her imagination. Was she already too late? With the puppy squirming in her arms, Madison Carter stepped into the darkness, knowing that whatever she found would change her life forever. The broken door groaned as it swung open, scattering dust into the thin stream of hallway light. Madison's senses kicked into overdrive. The air inside was bitter cold, heavy with the smell of mold, old takeout, and something sharper. Urine, maybe, or the metallic tang of sickness. Her flashlight beam darted across peeling wallpaper, piles of dirty clothes and crusted dishes abandoned on the table. She stepped in slowly, every nerve on alert. The puppy, still wrapped in Madison's coat, twisted and whimpered, straining toward a shadowed corner of the room. Madison followed, careful not to trip over a plastic toy half buried in a tangle of blankets on the floor. The beam of her flashlight landed on a small figure. A girl, maybe 8, crouched protectively in front of a battered mattress. Her hair was a dark tangle, her cheeks streaked with dirt and old tears. The girl's eyes flickered with defiance and terror, a wild animal cornered by something it couldn't fight. "Who are you?" The girl's voice was raw, her arms outstretched like a shield. Behind her, Madison saw the shape of a child, much smaller, curled up under a heap of towels. The baby's breath rattled in the air, each inhale a fight. "I'm Madison. I'm here to help." She kept her voice low and gentle, trying to slow her pounding heart. "The puppy, Rocky, right? He found me. I saw your note." The girl's expression cracked. "Rocky," she sobbed. The puppy wiggled free from Madison's grip and leaped toward her, licking her face with frantic affection. The child's defenses crumbled. She hugged Rocky tight, pressing her face into his fur, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Madison crouched, careful not to startle her. "What's your name?" "Leah," the girl whispered, still clutching Rocky. "That's my brother, Sammy. He's sick." Madison flicked her light toward the makeshift bed. The boy, maybe 3 years old, was flushed and shivering, his eyes glassy with fever. His lips moved but made no sound. "How long have you been here alone, Leah?" Madison's voice was calm, but inside a storm raged. Leah shook her head, silent, shrinking back. Madison scanned the room. The fridge hung open, empty except for a single half-empty carton of milk and a wilted apple. The heat was off. There was no sign of any adult. She pulled her radio from her belt, voice tight with urgency. "Dispatch, this is Carter. 2 minors located at 14th, and Dawson, apartment 12B. 1 is non-responsive, high fever. Request EMS immediately. I am staying on scene." As she waited for the reply, Madison knelt beside Sammy. She pressed the back of her hand to his forehead. He burned with fever, his skin dry and too hot. "Hey, little guy, can you hear me?" No answer. Leah crawled closer, still hugging Rocky. I tried to give him water, but the water got shut off, and there's no food. Her voice was a whisper, thick with guilt and fear. I didn't know what else to do. Madison's heart clenched. You did the right thing, Leah. You took care of your brother, and you sent Rocky for help. That was really brave. Blue and red lights flickered through the thin curtains. Sirens split the silence. Leah flinched, eyes wide with panic. But Madison reached out, taking her small, shaking hand. It's okay, that's help. That's for Sammy, and for you too. Moments later, EMTs thundered into the apartment. Madison stepped back, letting them work, her mind reeling. The EMTs checked Sammy's vitals, speaking in quick, clipped voices. Severely dehydrated, high fever. We need to move him now. They loaded Sammy onto a stretcher, Leah clinging to his side, refusing to let go until Madison gently pried her away, promising, You can ride with us. I'll be right there, I promise. Leah's tears finally spilled over. Please don't let them take him away from me, please. The EMTs exchanged glances. One knelt beside Leah. We're just going to help your brother feel better. You'll see him at the hospital, and your dog can come too. Rocky whimpered, pressing himself against Leah's side as they led her down the hallway, away from the only home she'd ever known. Madison followed, her mind working through the facts, piecing together what little she knew. No food, no water, 2 abandoned children, a desperate note in a dog's collar. She replayed every detail, searching for hope, for some thread to pull that would make sense of this chaos. At the hospital, Leah sat stiff and silent in the ER waiting room, eyes fixed on the swinging doors behind which Sammy had disappeared. Rocky curled up beside her, head on her lap, as if determined to hold her together through sheer force of will. Madison stood nearby, arms crossed, feeling helpless. She'd seen kids come through the system before, some made it, some didn't. But this was different. The sight of Leah huddled with Rocky on the cracked plastic seat, her shoulders rigid with terror, pulled something loose in Madison's chest. A nurse approached. The baby's stable, but he's not out of the woods. We need to run tests, check for infections, malnutrition. Social services has been notified. They'll want to speak with you, Detective. Leah's eyes snapped up at the words. Are they going to take us away? Her voice trembled, fear mingling with stubbornness. Madison knelt down, looking her in the eye. No one's going to separate you and your brother tonight. I'll stay with you until we know he's okay. That's a promise. Leah nodded, eyes brimming with hope and doubt. Rocky licked her cheek, offering comfort only a dog can give. Hours passed in slow agony. Leah refused to leave the waiting room, clutching Rocky's fur, flinching at every noise. Madison stayed by her side, haunted by flashes of her own childhood. The long, empty nights when she'd wished someone would come, just to sit with her in the dark. She watched Leah fight to hold herself together, to stay strong for her brother. Finally, the doctor returned. Your brother's going to make it, he said gently. He needs rest, fluids, and care, but he'll recover. Relief crashed through Madison. Leah let out a breath she'd been holding for hours, but the doctor's next words chilled the room. Child Protective Services is on their way. We'll need to find a safe place for both children while we investigate. Leah's face crumpled. No, please. We can stay with Madison. Please don't split us up. Madison squeezed her hand. She understood that plea. The terror of being torn from the only family you had left. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Outside, the Santa Fe night was still and cold. Madison looked at Leah, at the dog who'd run through the dark for help, at the little girl who'd carried her brother through hunger and fear. She knew what she had to do. "I'm not leaving either of you," Madison promised, her voice steady. "I'll fight for you. I won't let you be alone." And as the first pale light of morning crept across the parking lot, Madison made a silent vow to do whatever it took to give Leah and Sammy a chance at a better life, no matter what it cost her. The waiting room at Santa Fe General was too bright, too clean, and too full of muffled voices echoing off tile. Leah sat with her knees pulled up to her chest. Rocky pressed close against her side, his head heavy on her lap. The sun was only just rising, painting watery stripes through the frosted windows. Madison Carter sat across from them, exhaustion in her bones but determination on her face, her badge clipped to a jacket draped over the back of her chair. She'd been awake for 26 hours, but she'd promised Leah she'd stay. Madison watched the girl's hands, how they clenched in Rocky's fur. Every so often, Leah's eyes would flicker up toward the double doors that led to the pediatric ward, searching for a sign, a nurse, a doctor, anything. That meant her little brother was coming back. But mostly, Leah just stayed silent, hugging the dog as if letting go would shatter whatever fragile thing was holding her together. The hospital coffee tasted like burnt pennies, but Madison sipped it anyway. She recognized the look in Leah's eyes, the same look she'd worn herself, years ago, when she was just a kid sitting alone in a hospital corridor, waiting for her mom to wake up after another accident. Back then, nobody had come to sit with her. Madison wouldn't let that happen to Leah. A nurse came by to check on them, offering a thin smile and a cup of juice for Leah. The girl shook her head, gaze locked on the door. Rocky, sensing her unease, scooted closer, warm fur a silent barrier between Leah and the world. Madison leaned forward, elbows on her knees. "You know, Rocky's a pretty smart dog," she said softly. "He found me, made sure I didn't leave until I read your note. That takes guts." Leah didn't respond, but her grip on Rocky tightened. Madison could see the faint shimmer of tears in her eyes, stubbornly unfallen. For hours, the three of them stayed in that waiting room. Nurses bustled, voices drifted over the intercom, and Madison's phone buzzed every so often with updates from the precinct. She ignored all of it. Whenever someone from social services came by with forms or questions, Madison answered for Leah, gently but firmly. She's not leaving her brother's side, not tonight. As dawn stretched into morning, a young doctor appeared, dark circles under his eyes. "You're Leah?" he asked softly, kneeling so he was eye level with her. "Your brother's resting now. He had a rough night, but he's strong. We're giving him medicine and fluids. Would you like to see him soon?" Leah's eyes widened. She nodded but didn't speak. "We'll let you in as soon as the nurses finish up, okay?" The doctor smiled, then turned to Madison. "Are you family?" Madison hesitated. "She's with me tonight," she said simply. After the doctor left, Madison found herself lost in old memories. She remembered the ache of waiting, the gnawing hunger that wasn't just about food, but about needing someone, anyone, to stay. She thought about her promise, whispered to herself on those long, sleepless nights. If she ever had the chance, she wouldn't let any child feel alone the way she had. Leah finally broke her silence. Her voice was so soft, Madison almost missed it. "Is Sammy going to die?" "No," Madison answered, steady and sure. "The doctors are helping him. You did everything right, Leah. You saved him." Leah looked down at Rocky, then up at Madison. "He was so hungry. I didn't know what else to do." "You did something brave," Madison said. "Sending Rocky to find help? That was smart. You took care of your brother. Not everyone would know what to do in a tough spot." Leah finally allowed herself a shaky, tiny nod. A nurse came to bring Leah to see Sammy, and Madison followed close behind. The pediatric ward was quiet, sunlight streaming in and making the walls look less gray. Sammy lay in a narrow bed, hooked up to tubes, his breathing steadier now. Leah climbed onto the chair beside him, Rocky hopping up and curling at her feet. Leah brushed her brother's hair from his forehead, her face so full of fierce love and relief that Madison had to turn away for a moment, blinking back her own tears. After the visit, social services returned. This time the caseworker, a woman named Mrs. Pearson, knelt in front of Leah. "We're glad your brother is getting better, Leah. We want to make sure you're both safe. Do you know where your mom is?" Leah's body went stiff. She shook her head, lips pressed tight. Mrs. Pearson smiled gently. "That's okay. Sometimes grown-ups get lost for a while. We're here to help until she can come back." Leah looked at Madison, wide-eyed, panic rising. Rocky stood up, placing himself between Leah and the stranger, a low rumble in his chest. Madison reached over, placing a calming hand on Rocky's back. "I told Leah I'd stay with her. If you need to find a place for her and her brother, I'm willing to help, temporarily at least." The caseworker raised an eyebrow, jotting down notes. "You're not family?" Madison shook her head. "No, but I've been through what they have. I won't let them fall through the cracks." The caseworker studied Madison, then glanced at Leah, who was gripping Rocky's fur for dear life. "All right, we'll process your emergency foster request." After the paperwork was signed and the caseworker left, Madison sat back down beside Leah. "You'll come home with me tonight. You and Sammy and Rocky. Just until things settle, okay?" Leah hesitated, then nodded. For the first time, some of the tension in her shoulders melted. As the day faded into evening, and Sammy finally slept peacefully, Madison stayed in the hospital room with Leah and Rocky. Leah curled up in a chair, Rocky's head in her lap. Madison watched them, memories swirling, her mother's voice, the slam of a door, the ache of emptiness. But this time she was the adult. This time she could change the ending. A nurse passed by, smiling at the odd little family gathered around the hospital bed. Madison saw the wonder in her eyes, the small, hopeful smile. Maybe, just maybe, this broken night could be the beginning of something new. By the time the room grew quiet, Madison felt an old wound inside her begin to stitch closed. She'd made a promise as a child, to never let someone else feel that kind of loneliness. Tonight, she'd kept it. In the quiet, with Rocky gently snoring at Leah's side, Madison let herself hope. Hope that tomorrow would bring healing for all of them. And that maybe, just maybe, they could become something more than just survivors. Maybe they could become family. The late afternoon sun in Santa Fe painted everything gold, draping Madison Carter's adobe house in warmth that seemed almost unreal after the chill and starkness of the hospital. Her home stood in a quiet neighborhood, breezy with cracked sidewalks and wind chimes tinkling from nearby porches. It was the sort of place that felt safe, Madison hoped, the way she'd always wanted home to feel. But even as she unlocked the blue-painted front door, she felt the weight of what was about to begin. She'd been a cop for 10 years, but this was different. This was the start of something messy, uncertain, and desperately needed. Inside, the house smelled faintly of cinnamon and sun-warmed wood. The rooms were filled with mismatched thrift store furniture, shelves lined with battered paperbacks, and photographs of landscapes she'd hiked years ago. Nothing here was fancy, but everything felt lived in. She glanced down at Leah, who hovered silently just inside the doorway. Sammy cradled in her arms, and Rocky pressed anxiously at her side. Leah's eyes darted around, scanning for exits, unfamiliar sounds, the promise of escape if she needed it. "It's okay, you can come in," Madison said softly, nudging the door wider. "This is your home for as long as you need it." She offered a gentle smile, but Leah just looked at her with suspicion and exhaustion, her arms locked tight around her brother. Rocky, on the other hand, wasted no time. He sniffed every corner, tail slowly beginning to wag as he explored the living room, then paused to nuzzle Leah's leg as if to say, "It's all right, I've checked. Nothing scary here." Leah stepped inside, shuffling along the edge of the hallway wall, careful not to touch anything. Madison set down a small grocery bag on the kitchen counter. Milk, eggs, pancake mix, peanut butter. She glanced at the clock. 5:38 p.m. Too early for bedtime, too late for lunch. But just right for pancakes, she decided. "You ever made pancakes?" she asked, her tone deliberately casual, as if the room wasn't thick with tension. Leah shook her head. Madison opened the fridge and started gathering ingredients. "Want to help me crack some eggs?" She motioned Leah closer. The girl hesitated, then inched forward, setting Sammy gently on a soft blanket on the floor, Rocky curling up beside him like a furry guardian. Madison handed Leah an egg. The girl studied it in her palm, turning it over with care. When Madison showed her how to crack it against the rim of the bowl, Leah copied her, smiling just barely, when the shell split perfectly in half. Madison grinned. "Nice job. That's better than my first try." Leah's smile faded as quickly as it came, but it lingered in her eyes, uncertain and fragile. As Madison whisked batter, she glanced over and saw Leah watching her warily, as if waiting for the trick, the trap. "I know things are confusing right now," Madison said gently, "but you and Sammy are safe here. Nobody's going to send you away. Not if I can help it." Leah's voice was barely audible. "Will you send us away when my mom comes back?" She clutched the hem of her shirt, face taut with fear. Madison set down the spoon and knelt to Leah's level. "I can't promise what'll happen with your mom, not yet, but I can promise you this. You're not alone. Not while you're here. I won't let you be alone again." Her words hung in the air, sincere and trembling with memory. Leah blinked, studying Madison's face for any sign of a lie. Finding none, she nodded once, quick and sharp, and that seemed to settle something between them. When the pancakes were done, Madison set the table with 3 mismatched plates. Leah sat at the edge, feet dangling, one hand on Rocky's back. Sammy, still tired, nibbled at the soft pancake Madison cut up for him. Rocky, never far, sat obediently at Leah's feet. Madison drizzled syrup over Leah's pancake, and Rocky's tongue darted out, licking a sticky drop from Leah's hand. Leah giggled, genuinely this time, if only for a moment, and Rocky's tail thumped in reply. After dinner, Leah explored the house. She moved quietly, sticking close to the walls, peeking into the tidy guest room, where a small bed was already made up with bright blankets. "This is for you and Sammy," Madison said. Leah only nodded, pulling the covers tight around her brother. But when bedtime came, she refused to leave the floor. Instead, she curled up with Rocky beside Sammy's crib, eyes darting around the room even as she fought sleep. Madison spread a blanket over her and left the door open, just in case. Later, as the sky darkened to blue-black, Madison stood in the hallway, listening to the deep, even breaths of the children and the soft, comforting snore of Rocky. Her own heart hammered with anxiety. Would she know what to do if Leah woke from a nightmare? If Sammy got sick again? Could she really become what these children needed? The first night passed with fitful sleep. Madison woke to a whimper and hurried into the guest room. Leah sat bolt upright, clutching Rocky. "Where's Sammy?" she gasped. "Right here," Madison soothed, pointing to the crib. "He's safe. You're both safe." Leia lay back down, but Madison stayed with her until her eyes closed again. By morning, the house was alive with soft sunlight. Madison made pancakes again, this time letting Leah pour the batter and flip them herself. It was clumsy, syrup went everywhere, but laughter, soft, hesitant, filled the kitchen, echoing in corners that had been silent too long. Leah let Rocky lick her sticky fingers, grinning, and even Sammy clapped his hands with delight. The day passed in small, cautious steps. Madison unpacked a box of toys and left them on the living room rug. She found Leah reading to Rocky, pointing at pictures and sounding out words. When Sammy cried, Leah was the first to comfort him, but she let Madison help, watching her closely for any sign of impatience or anger. There was none. Instead, Madison was gentle, patient, showing Leah how to warm a bottle, how to swaddle Sammy in a blanket. That afternoon, Leah stood in the doorway to Madison's bedroom, looking at the photographs on the wall, mountains, forests, rivers. "Did you climb those?" she asked, curiosity breaking through. "I did," Madison replied. "Maybe one day you'll come with me." Leah smiled, a real, wide smile that changed her whole face. "Can Rocky come too?" Madison laughed. "Of course. He's part of the family now." As dusk settled in, Leah helped set the table again. She looked at Madison with shy hope. "Can we stay? Just one more night?" Madison knelt beside her, looking into her eyes. "You can stay as long as you need. This is your home now." And as the house filled with the warmth of cautious hope, Madison realized something had shifted. Not just for Leah and Sammy, but for her as well. The silence that had haunted these walls was gone, replaced by the sounds of healing, the beginnings of trust, and the laughter of a new family just starting to believe in second chances. Underscore, 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 mornings at Madison Carter's house quickly fell into a gentle routine. Waking to the sun streaking through pale curtains, pancakes sizzling on the stove, and Rocky trotting room to room, nudging everyone awake with a cold nose and wagging tail. For the first time in a long time, Leah and Sammy weren't hungry, cold, or alone. But as soon as Madison broached the topic of school, a new kind of fear flickered in Leah's eyes. Leah sat at the breakfast table, hands curled tight around a chipped blue mug. Rocky lay sprawled under her chair, tail thumping the floor in steady reassurance. "Do I have to go?" Leah asked, voice small. "Can't I just stay here with Rocky and Sammy?" Madison gave her a soft smile, pouring more syrup over Leah's pancakes. "You'll be okay. It's just a new place. New friends, new teachers, and Rocky will be waiting for you at home every day." She knelt down, brushing a strand of hair from Leah's cheek. "Besides, Sammy and I need you to tell us all the stories about your adventures. Right, Sammy?" Sammy grinned, mouth full of pancake. "Story!" Leah managed a half-hearted smile, but the worry lingered. Still, Madison knew she had to help Leah face the world, not hide from it. After breakfast, she packed Leah's backpack, brand new but already looking a little out of place among her second-hand clothes. Madison tied Rocky's leash, handed Leah her lunch, and together they walked down the sidewalk, autumn leaves crunching underfoot. The elementary school was a modest building just 3 blocks away, its playground alive with laughter and the squeal of sneakers on blacktop. Madison crouched to Leah's level, Rocky sitting at her side. "You'll be great," Madison said. "I'll pick you up right here after school. Rocky and I both, promise." Leah nodded, her fingers buried in Rocky's fur for one last reassuring squeeze. As she walked toward the school doors, her steps grew slower, head down, shoulders tense. Madison watched her go, heart tight with worry and hope. For Rocky, waiting was the hardest part. He whimpered and circled the fence as Leia disappeared inside. Madison patted his head. "I know, buddy. She'll be back soon." She turned for home, Sammy babbling in her arms, and tried not to imagine what the day might bring. The hours dragged. Madison cleaned, checked her email, and played with Sammy. But her mind kept returning to Leah, wondering if she'd found a friend, if her teachers were kind, if she was eating her lunch or just pushing it around her tray. She thought of her own first days in new schools, always the outsider, and said a silent prayer for Leah's courage. Finally, the clock struck 3. Madison and Rocky hurried down the sidewalk, arriving just as a sea of children flooded out the doors. Leah was among the last to emerge, shoulders hunched, backpack slung low. She didn't see Madison at first. Her eyes were red, face pinched with something between anger and humiliation. Before Madison could call out, a voice rang out behind her. "That's her, the foster kid with the cop." A trio of boys stood near the swings, snickering. One of them made a barking noise. "Maybe her dog can do tricks. Hey, Mutt, sit." Leah's cheeks flared. She clutched her backpack tighter, quickening her pace. Rocky bristled, growling low and menacing. The principal, Mrs. Ramirez, hustled over. "Hey, enough!" she snapped at the boys. They scattered, but not before tossing one last taunt over their shoulders. Madison moved fast, putting herself between Leah and the boys. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. Leah didn't answer. She just knelt and threw her arms around Rocky, burying her face in his fur. "I want to go home," she mumbled. Mrs. Ramirez knelt beside them, eyes kind. "I'm so sorry, Leah. Kids can be mean sometimes. But you know, Rocky's not just any dog. He's family, right?" Leah looked up, uncertain. Madison nodded. "That's right. Rocky's more than a pet. He takes care of us, and we take care of him. He's helped Leah and Sammy through a lot." Mrs. Ramirez nodded. "We'll talk to those boys. And Leah, you're always welcome here. I'll make sure you have a friend in class tomorrow." Leah managed a small, grateful smile. Madison squeezed her shoulder, then led her and Rocky away from the schoolyard. As they walked home, Leah stayed silent, fingers never leaving Rocky's collar. Madison waited until they were nearly at the front door. "If you ever want to talk about what happened, I'm here," she said gently. Leah shrugged, but after a moment she spoke. "At the old place, I always had to watch out for Sammy. Sometimes Mom would be gone for days. I used to pretend Rocky could talk to me so I wouldn't be scared." Madison's heart ached. She crouched beside Leah. "You don't have to pretend anymore. You have me and Sammy, and Rocky's real good at listening too." That night, Madison made spaghetti for dinner. Leah barely ate. She sat at the table, spinning her fork, lost in thought. Rocky rested his head in her lap, big brown eyes fixed on her face. Finally, Leah spoke. "Do you think I'll ever have friends, or will everyone just see me as different?" Madison sat down across from her, steady and sincere. "Different isn't bad, Leah. Sometimes it just means you're brave enough to stand out. I was the new kid once, too. It's not easy, but you're not alone. Not anymore." Leah's eyes filled with tears she wouldn't let fall. She looked at Sammy, then at Rocky. "Promise." "Promise," Madison said. She reached over and squeezed Leah's hand. That weekend, Madison took Leia and Sammy to the park. The sun was bright, the air cool. Leah was quiet at first, but soon she was pushing Sammy on the swing, Rocky bounding nearby. Other kids played tag, some glancing at Leah with curiosity, a few with envy at her loyal dog. At one point, a soccer ball rolled to Leah's feet. A girl her age approached, hesitant. "Want to play?" she asked. Leah looked at Madison, who nodded encouragement. Rocky barked, tail wagging. Leah smiled, small but real, and joined the game. Madison watched from a distance, hope swelling in her chest. She saw Leah stumble and fall, saw a boy offer her a hand up. She saw her laugh, brief and bright, as Rocky leapt after the ball, causing the other kids to shriek and scatter. On the way home, Leah walked ahead, Rocky by her side, a new spring in her step. That night, as Madison tucked her into bed, Leah whispered, "Maybe school's not so bad." Madison brushed the hair from Leah's forehead. "You're tougher than you think, kiddo." As the house settled into quiet, Madison lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She replayed every moment of Leah's first week at school, her fear, her bravery, her heartbreak, and her tiny victories. She thought about how fragile it all was, how quickly hope could shatter. She worried, wondering if she could ever help heal wounds she couldn't see. But then she heard laughter from the other room, Leah and Sammy giggling as Rocky chased his tail, and she allowed herself to believe, just for tonight, that they were all going to be okay. Autumn in Santa Fe was turning, the mornings now crisp and the evenings settling quickly into long blue shadows. Inside Madison's house, life had begun to take on a gentle rhythm. Leah and Sammy grew a little braver each day, their laughter echoing down the hallways. Rocky always close by, sometimes acting as Sammy's pillow, sometimes Leah's silent guardian. Madison cherished these moments, but beneath the comfort, worry gnawed at her. She'd read enough case files to know things rarely stayed simple. One Saturday afternoon, just as the sun dipped behind the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, Madison was sweeping fallen leaves from the porch when a battered sedan rolled slowly to a stop at the curb. It idled for a moment, engine rattling, then shut off. Madison straightened, uneasy, as the door opened and a thin woman stepped out. Her hair tangled, eyes darting nervously behind oversized sunglasses. She walked up the path, arms folded, shoulders hunched defensively. Madison recognized her instantly from the case file and from Leah's tentative description. This was Amber, Leah and Sammy's mother. Amber stopped at the bottom step, her voice tight and brittle. "Is Leah here?" Madison's instincts flared, a cop's caution and a caretaker's protectiveness. "She is, and Sammy too. Who are you?" Amber's lips quivered, her chin trembling with a mixture of anger, guilt, and fear. "I'm their mother. I know I messed up, but I want to see them, please." Inside, Rocky let out a low, warning bark. Leah, who had been coloring at the kitchen table, froze as the sound reached her. She glanced out the window, eyes growing wide. Her hand gripped the crayon so tight it snapped. "Madison," she whispered, her voice already shaking. Madison put the broom aside, stepping closer to Amber but keeping her tone even. "You should know Child Services has custody now. The kids are safe here." Amber's hands fluttered, desperate. "I just want to see them, talk to them. I made mistakes, but they're my kids." Madison saw a flicker of hope in Amber's eyes, but also a storm, remorse tangled with denial. Before Madison could answer, Leah appeared at the doorway, Rocky wedged in front of her, hackles raised and teeth bared. Sammy peeked from behind Leah, thumb in his mouth. Amber dropped to her knees, her voice trembling. "Leah, baby, it's me. I'm so sorry. I lost my job and then I got sick and things spun out. I never meant to leave you, I swear. I'm here now. I want to fix it." Leah stood frozen, torn between longing and dread, Her eyes flicked to Madison, then back to her mother. "You left us," she whispered, voice quavering. "You said you'd be back, but you didn't come. I had to take care of Sammy. We were so hungry." Amber sobbed, reaching toward Leah, but Rocky stepped between them, a growl rumbling in his chest. Leah knelt, burying her face in Rocky's fur. Amber's hand hovered in the air, fingers trembling. Madison moved to Leah's side, kneeling. "Amber, you can't just show up and expect everything to be okay. Leah and Sammy have been through a lot. If you really care, you need to prove you're ready to do what's best for them." Amber's face twisted with pain and shame. I know I failed them. I'm trying to get help. I'm sober now. I have a new job. I just want a chance." Leah's tears spilled over, her voice cracking. "But you always leave. How do I know you won't leave again?" Amber shook her head, words tumbling out. "I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I want to try. Please, Leah, just give me a chance." Rocky pressed closer to Leah, as if trying to shield her from every hard word. Sammy began to whimper, clinging to Leah's sleeve. Madison placed a steady hand on Leah's shoulder. "You don't have to decide anything today, Leah. Child Services will help sort this out. You're safe here." Amber pulled herself together, standing shakily. "When can I see them again?" Madison's jaw tightened. "That's up to Child Services, and Leah and Sammy. I'll call your caseworker. For now, I think you should go." Amber looked at Leah with pleading eyes. "I love you. Both of you." She stepped backward, then turned and stumbled toward her car, shoulders slumped in defeat. Leah watched her mother drive away, silent tears streaming down her face. Rocky whined softly, nuzzling her cheek. Madison hugged her gently, letting her cry until the sobs faded. That night the house felt different. Leah was quieter, withdrawn. Over dinner she barely touched her food. Sammy sensed the tension and stayed close to Leah, holding her hand under the table. Rocky didn't leave her side once, curling up on her feet as she sat in the living room, staring into space. Later, after putting Sammy to bed, Madison sat with Leah in the dimly lit kitchen. The wind rattled the windows, and the warmth from the stove cast long, gentle shadows. Madison poured 2 mugs of warm milk, setting one in front of Leah. "You want to talk about it?" she asked softly. Leah shook her head, eyes red. "I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to see her, but part of me's scared. What if she leaves again?" Madison nodded, her own heart heavy. "It's okay to feel both. You love her, that's natural. But you don't have to choose right now. I promise I'll be here no matter what." Leah stared at her milk. "Do you think she can change?" "I don't know," Madison answered honestly. "Sometimes people do, sometimes they don't. What I do know is you deserve to feel safe, and you don't have to go back unless you want to." They sat in silence, the clock ticking. Eventually, Leah leaned her head against Madison's shoulder. "Promise you won't let them take us away if it's not safe?" Madison wrapped an arm around her, voice fierce. "I promise. I'll fight for you and Sammy. You're not alone." The following days brought visits from Child Services and tense meetings with Amber. She tried to show she'd changed, but her stories were shaky, her apologies edged with desperation. Each time, Leah stayed close to Rocky, watching her mother with a mixture of hope and hard-earned skepticism. Sammy was too young to understand, but even he clung to Leah's leg whenever Amber visited. After one visit, Leah whispered to Madison, "I don't want to go. She always leaves us. Please don't make me." Madison hugged her tight. No one's making you do anything you don't want. I'm on your side. It became clear to Madison what she had to do. She called her lawyer and the caseworker, voice steady, conviction in every word. I want to fight for Leah and Sammy's safety. I'm prepared to seek custody if that's what it takes. That night, as rain pattered the roof, Madison watched Leah sleep, Rocky curled protectively around her. The battle ahead would be hard, but she'd already made her decision. No matter what came next, she wouldn't let these kids be alone in the world again. The days leading up to the custody hearing were a blur of tension and uncertainty. Santa Fe's golden autumn light did little to warm the anxiety that filled Madison's home. Leah hardly spoke, wandering the house with Rocky at her side, eyes flicking nervously to the window each time a car slowed on the street. Sammy sensed the unease and clung to Leah, his laughter quieter, his sleep restless. Madison tried to keep life steady, making pancakes, reading bedtime stories, playing cards at the kitchen table, but the cloud of the approaching court date loomed over everything. On the morning of the hearing, Madison dressed in her best suit, her hands trembling as she pinned her badge to her blazer. She looked in the mirror and saw not just a cop, but someone with everything on the line. Leah wore a simple blue dress Madison had picked out, hair pulled back in a nervous braid. She clutched Rocky's leash in one hand and Madison's hand in the other, refusing to let go of either. Sammy was too young to understand, but he wore his Sunday shirt and a smile for his big sister. The courthouse was busy, filled with echoes of voices, the shuffling of papers, the clang of metal doors. Madison's lawyer, a sturdy woman named Miss Garza, met them outside the courtroom. "Remember, just tell the truth," she said, her voice low and firm. "And keep your focus on Leah and Sammy's best interests." Amber stood at the far end of the hall, her appearance slightly improved, a neat blouse, cleaner hair, but her eyes darted anxiously. She looked at Leah and Sammy with longing, but when her gaze met Madison's, it hardened, suspicion and desperation flaring. Inside the courtroom, the judge, a stern woman with a silver bun and sharp eyes, called everyone to order. The lawyers introduced themselves. Then the judge glanced at Leah, Rocky pressed against her knees. "Is that your dog?" she asked gently. Leah nodded, fingers buried in Rocky's fur. "His name's Rocky. He helps me when I'm scared." The judge smiled just a little. "Court will allow Rocky to stay, as long as he behaves." Amber's attorney began, painting a picture of a mother down on her luck, but working hard to reclaim her children. Amber herself spoke in trembling tones, recounting her recent job, her progress in recovery, her new apartment. "I know I made mistakes," she said, her voice cracking, "but I love my kids. I want to be a family again. I can do better." The judge nodded, but her face remained inscrutable. Then it was Leah's turn. She trembled as she took the witness stand, Rocky sitting at her feet, his eyes never leaving her face. Madison's heart squeezed as Leah squeezed Rocky's fur, drawing silent strength from his presence. "Leah, can you tell me what it's been like living with Madison?" the judge asked, her voice gentle. Leah's voice was barely a whisper. "It's safe. Madison makes pancakes for breakfast, and she always leaves the light on when I'm scared. She never yells at me, not even when I spill things, and Rocky gets to sleep on my bed." She hesitated, voice shaking. "I like being here. I feel like I have a family." The judge nodded, then asked the hardest question. "Do you want to go back to your mom?" Leah looked down, her eyes brimming. "I want to see her, but I'm scared. She always leaves. I had to take care of Sammy by myself." Rocky whined softly, and Leah leaned down to bury her face in his fur. I just want us to stay together. Me and Sammy. I want to stay with Madison." Amber's attorney objected, questioning Leah's ability to decide, but the judge allowed her testimony to stand. Next, Madison took the stand. She sat straight, voice steady, but her hands fidgeted under the table. "I've seen what neglect does to kids. I promised myself I'd never let a child go through what I went through." She looked at Leah, then at the judge. "Leah and Sammy are safe with me. I don't claim to be perfect, but I will do everything to give them stability and love. And Rocky, he's more than a dog. He's helped Leah heal." Amber's lawyer pressed, suggesting Madison had no legal ties to the children, that she was overstepping her role as a temporary guardian. Madison didn't flinch. Family isn't just blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up and stay, no matter what. That's what these kids need. That's what I needed once, too. As testimony closed, Amber's nerves frayed. She stood abruptly, tears streaking her face, voice rising. "You can't just take my kids from me. I'm their mother." Her words echoed, anger and pain boiling over. The judge's gavel rapped for order. Amber's lawyer tried to calm her, but the outburst hung heavy in the air. The judge fixed Amber with a piercing look. "Miss Taylor, the court acknowledges your desire to do better, but actions speak louder than words." The room was silent as the judge shuffled her papers, then looked up. "In the best interests of Leah and Sammy, and based on the evidence and testimony today, I am granting continued custody to Detective Madison Carter. Visitation with Miss Taylor will be supervised until further notice. This ruling is in effect until a formal adoption hearing can be scheduled." Madison let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Leah burst into tears. Relief, fear, and hope all tangled together. Rocky licked her face, tail wagging madly as Sammy clapped, sensing the joy. Amber slumped in her seat, defeated and sobbing. Madison's heart ached for her, but her relief for Leah and Sammy was stronger. She gathered the children and Rocky in her arms, whispering, "We're okay. We're together." Outside the courtroom, Miss Garza smiled. "You did good, Detective. You all did." Leah clung to Madison's waist. "We get to stay?" Madison knelt, looking Leah in the eye. "You get to stay. All of us, together." Rocky barked and spun in a happy circle, as if he understood everything. Sammy wrapped his arms around Madison's leg, beaming up at her. The drive home was full of new hope, the children's laughter, Rocky's happy yelp, the fresh autumn breeze rushing through the open windows. It all felt like a celebration. That night, Madison made Leah's favorite pancakes for dinner. They ate together at the kitchen table, Rocky dozing at their feet, the house filled with warmth and the deep, enduring comfort of belonging. As Leah drifted off to sleep that night, she whispered to Madison, "Thank you for fighting for us." Madison brushed a hand through Leah's hair. "Always, kiddo. I'll always fight for you." And in the quiet of that Santa Fe evening, Madison realized something. The scars of the past might never fully fade, but here, in this small house with these brave children and one loyal dog, they had found something better than survival. They had found family. It was amazing how fast life could change when you finally felt safe. In the weeks after the custody hearing, Madison's adobe house in Santa Fe was transformed by the everyday magic of healing. The days grew cooler, and the leaves outside turned fiery red and gold. But inside, laughter and warmth filled every room, like sunlight that never faded. For the first time since she could remember, Leah woke without a pit in her stomach and drifted to sleep without fear. Madison woke early most mornings now, quietly making coffee while the house was still and dark. Sometimes she paused in the hallway just to listen. Sammy's gentle snores, Leia's soft murmur as she dreamed, and the reassuring jingle of Rocky's collar as he stretched and yawned, always awake and alert the moment a new day began. There was a rhythm now: school, homework, dinner, bedtime stories. But life wasn't just safe and predictable. It was bright with possibility. Leah started to talk more, to smile and laugh without looking over her shoulder. She decorated the refrigerator with her drawings and hung a photo of Rocky in a frame Madison helped her make. Sammy learned to ride a tricycle up and down the sidewalk, Rocky trotting protectively beside him, barking each time Sammy wobbled, but never letting him fall. The first big test of their new life came one chilly Saturday at the neighborhood park. Leah had been nervous about going. In her old life, parks meant strangers, loneliness, and trouble. But now she held Sammy's hand, Rocky's leash looped around her wrist, and marched out the door with Madison at her side. The park was alive with kids chasing each other, parents chatting over coffee, and dogs of all shapes and sizes sniffing and tumbling in the grass. Leah hovered on the edge of the playground, uncertain, until a girl from her class ran up. "You brought your dog," the girl cried. "Can I pet him?" Leah nodded shyly. "His name's Rocky. He's really nice." Other kids came over, drawn by Rocky's eager tail and big, soulful eyes. They petted him, tossed him a tennis ball, and laughed as he chased it down and returned, tongue lolling, looking as proud as any champion. For the first time, Leah didn't shrink from the attention. She introduced Rocky to everyone, her confidence blooming with every smile and friendly word. Then something happened that made Madison's heart skip. Leah was helping Sammy climb the jungle gym when a wild shout rang out, and a larger dog, a wiry brown mutt, broke free from its owner and barreled toward Sammy, barking madly. Sammy froze, tears already forming, but Rocky leapt to his feet, positioning himself between the strange dog and the children, hackles up but stance calm and protective. He didn't bark or snap. He simply stood his ground, a solid wall of loyalty. The wild dog skidded to a halt, hesitated, then was scooped up by its embarrassed owner, who apologized profusely. Sammy, a little shaken, reached for Rocky, who licked his face as if to say, "It's okay, you're safe now." Leah hugged her brother tight, then hugged Rocky too. Other parents nodded in admiration, and a few even clapped. Madison felt a tear slide down her cheek. Pride, relief, gratitude. As the sun sank and the air turned crisp, the kids begged to walk home together. Leah invited her classmates over for hot cocoa, and for the first time, the house was filled with the sound of more than just family. It was filled with friends. That night, as Madison tucked Leah in, the little girl handed her something, a shiny new collar, blue with silver letters spelling Rocky, and below, a metal tag with both Leah's name and Madison's etched into it. "It's for Rocky," Leah said, voice trembling with pride and happiness. "So everyone knows he belongs with us, and so he knows we're his family too." Madison fastened the collar around Rocky's neck, and the dog's tail swept the air in happy approval. "Looks good, buddy," Madison said. Leah giggled, her face bright with hope. She no longer asked if she'd have to leave or if her mother would come back. Instead, she asked what they would do next weekend, if they could make pancakes again, or if Rocky could come to school for show and tell. The following week, Leah brought Rocky in for Kindness Week. She stood at the front of her class, nervous but determined, and told their story, how Rocky had helped her when she was scared, how he had brought her and Sammy to Madison, and how he made them all feel safe. Her classmates listened, rapt. When she finished, the teacher hugged her and gave Rocky a treat. At recess, kids gathered around her, no longer teasing, but wanting to be her friend. A few days later, Madison got a call from Leah's teacher. "I wanted to let you know," she said, "that Leah's been nominated for the school's Kindness Award. She looks out for others, helps new students, and even started a group to walk younger kids home safely. She's made a real difference here." Madison could barely speak, her pride so fierce and deep. She hugged Leah tight that afternoon, tears in her eyes as she whispered, "You're amazing. Don't ever forget that." Their home, once quiet and haunted by worry, was alive now with laughter and love. The kitchen was always a little messy, sticky pancake syrup on the counter, dog hair everywhere, art supplies scattered across the table. But Madison wouldn't have traded it for anything. Every time she saw Leah helping Sammy with his shoes, or Rocky dozing with his head in Leah's lap, she knew they had built something real, something that could weather any storm. On weekends, they explored Santa Fe together. Madison took the kids and Rocky to the farmer's market, where Leah helped pick out vegetables and Sammy got blueberry muffins with sticky hands. They went on short hikes, Leah's curiosity blossoming as Madison pointed out every lizard and wildflower along the way. At home, they started a tiny garden in the backyard, Leah insisting Rocky had to have his own patch to dig in. One Saturday evening, after a day spent baking cookies and dancing around the living room to old Motown records, Madison looked around the table at the family she'd chosen and who had chosen her in return. There was no more fear in Leah's eyes, only light. Sammy laughed so hard at Rocky's antics he nearly toppled from his chair, and Leah caught him, steady and sure. Before bed, Leah hugged Madison tightly. "I'm glad we're a family," she whispered. Madison's heart swelled. "Me too, kiddo. More than anything." And as Leah drifted off to sleep, Rocky curled beside her, and Sammy snuggled under his covers. Madison stood in the doorway, silent tears of gratitude slipping down her face. Their journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges ahead. But their home was finally, truly a home, built on the unbreakable foundation of hope, trust, and love. Underscore 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 underscore. Sunrise painted golden stripes across the kitchen floor as Madison quietly folded laundry in the next room, humming a tune under her breath. It was a peaceful Saturday, the kind that made the house feel settled, almost timeless. Leah sat at the kitchen table, head bent over a sheet of lined paper, her tongue poking from the corner of her mouth in concentration. Rocky sprawled on the rug at her feet, his big head resting protectively atop her sneakers, breathing slow and steady. Leah was working on her essay for the school contest. The topic printed at the top, what family means. At first the words had felt too big, too complicated, but as she listened to the familiar sounds of home, Sammy's giggles from the living room, Madison's quiet footsteps, Rocky's gentle sigh, Leah found her pen moving almost on its own. She remembered the first night in this house, curled on the floor with Rocky, too afraid to sleep in a bed, too afraid to hope. She remembered pancakes in the morning, the feel of Madison's hand in her hair, the way Rocky always pressed closer when she was scared. It wasn't magic that made her safe. It was people showing up and staying, even when things were hard. Pausing mid-sentence, Leah glanced up. Madison caught her eye and smiled, a silent question in her gaze. Leah grinned, feeling the warmth bloom in her chest. She hesitated, then asked, "Madison, why did you help us? Why did you keep us when you didn't have to?" Madison set the laundry basket down and came to sit across from her, folding her hands on the table. She took a breath, voice soft but steady. "Because I saw myself in you. When I was a kid, I was scared and alone too. I promised myself that if I ever had the chance, I'd never let a child feel that way. And because sometimes family is the people and the dogs who never give up on each other. I needed you as much as you needed me. Leia let those words sink in, feeling the truth of them echo deep inside. She looked down at Rocky, then at Madison, and for the first time truly understood that family wasn't about who you were born to. It was about who stood by you. She read the draft of her essay aloud, her voice trembling at first but growing steadier with every line. Family means being scared, but not being alone. It means having someone who listens, who stays, who keeps you warm when the world feels cold. Rocky didn't know me, but he never left me behind. Madison didn't know me, but she wouldn't let me go. Family is when you have someone to fight for you, and someone you'd fight for too. When she finished, the room was silent except for the sound of Rocky's tail thumping the floor. Madison reached out, taking Leah's hand in hers, eyes bright. That's beautiful, Leah. And it's true. You've got a gift for telling the real story. Leah smiled, cheeks pink with pride. Rocky, sensing the emotional shift, got up and nudged his head into Leah's lap, demanding affection. Leah giggled and scratched behind his ears. Sammy, drawn by the laughter, toddled in and climbed into Leah's lap, clutching his sister tight. I like our family, he announced, grinning toothily. Madison gathered all three of them, Leah, Sammy, and Rocky, into a group hug, feeling the swell of emotion that came with belonging. It was a feeling she'd never known growing up, one she'd fought hard to create here in this sunlit kitchen. Later that afternoon, as Leah added the finishing touches to her essay, Madison reflected on how far they'd all come. The rescue that night in Santa Fe wasn't a one-way street. Helping Leah and Sammy had filled a hole inside Madison, healing scars she'd long tried to hide. The love they gave back was as fierce and real as anything she'd ever known. She saw the same change in Rocky. He'd arrived on her doorstep skinny, wild-eyed, unsure. But with patience, care, and time, he'd become more than a protector. He was family. His own journey from neglected stray to beloved companion mirrored Leah's transformation. Their scars, both seen and unseen, were now symbols of survival, not shame. That weekend, something extraordinary happened. Word of Leah's kindness award and her essay spread through the neighborhood, then the school, and finally the community center where Madison volunteered. Neighbors stopped by to drop off congratulations and ask if Leah and Rocky could visit their kids. A local reporter called, hoping to share their story in the city newsletter. At first, Madison hesitated. Her instinct was always to protect Leah's privacy, but Leah surprised her, nodding eagerly. Maybe if people know what it's like, they'll help more kids and more dogs like Rocky. So they shared their story. A girl and her brother, a detective who kept her promise, and a stray dog who refused to give up. They talked about what it meant to show up, even when it was hard, to choose kindness over fear, and how the power of rescue is always mutual. The message resonated more deeply than Madison could have imagined. In the weeks that followed, families in Santa Fe opened their homes to foster children and rescue animals in need. Madison got thank you cards from strangers and invitations to speak at schools. Leah's teacher asked her to read her essay at a community event, where she stood tall, nervous but proud, Rocky sitting by her side, a living reminder that love, loyalty, and healing were possible, even after the hardest storms. At home, Madison and Leah talked about the future, about the upcoming adoption hearing, about what Leah wanted to do next, about how to keep helping others. Their story, Madison realized, was more than just theirs now. It had become a spark, lighting hope in places that had long felt dark. One evening, as the family gathered on the porch to watch the sunset, Madison squeezed Leah's hand. You know, every act of kindness starts a ripple. You never know how far it'll go. Leah looked out at the sky, streaked with colors she'd never seen before coming here, and smiled. I hope our story helps someone else feel less alone. Madison hugged her close, her heart full. Me too, kiddo. Me too. And as Rocky lay at their feet, Sammy dozed in Madison's lap, and the stars came out one by one. The house on their quiet Santa Fe street was filled with a quiet, lasting light. The kind that only comes when you finally understand the true meaning of family, loyalty, and love. Adoption Day dawned in Santa Fe with sunlight spilling like gold over the city's adobe rooftops. It was a morning thick with promise and nerves, the sort of day where time seems to slow, every moment etched in the heart. Madison Carter woke early, her mind awash in hope and worry, gratitude and disbelief. It hardly seemed real that this was the day she'd finally, officially, become Leah and Sammy's mother. She watched them sleeping. Leah curled up, arms around Rocky's neck. Sammy snuggled close, breathing deep and peaceful. Madison's own heart was restless, thumping against old scars and new dreams. In the kitchen, she made pancakes, just as she had on their first morning together, the scent sweet and familiar. Today, she added a handful of chocolate chips, a little celebration in each bite. Leah awoke first, blinking in the early light, face breaking into a slow, shy smile. Is it really today? She whispered. Madison nodded, crouching beside her. It's really today. They dressed in their best. Leah in a yellow dress that brought out the light in her eyes. Sammy in a button-down shirt with a crooked collar. Rocky proudly wearing his new blue collar and a red bandana. As Madison combed Leah's hair, her fingers gentle, she felt the tremble of emotion run through them both. I'm a little scared, Leah confessed, her voice tiny. That's okay, Madison murmured. Big days always feel a little scary, but we're doing it together. And I'll be with you, always. The courthouse was packed with friends and neighbors, faces familiar and new. The caseworkers who'd once worried for Leah and Sammy's future were there, smiling, tears in their eyes. The staff from the animal shelter who'd rescued Rocky came too, beaming with pride. Madison's colleagues from the police department, the school principal, even Leah's teacher, all showed up, the room full of warmth and community. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting bright patches on the polished wood floor. They sat together at the front, Rocky's tail thumping nervously, Sammy fidgeting in Madison's lap. Leah clung to Madison's hand, knuckles white, eyes huge with hope and fear. When the judge entered, Judge Alvarez with kind eyes and a serious face, everyone rose, the room buzzing with anticipation. Judge Alvarez smiled at Leah and Sammy, nodding to Rocky. We have a very special case today, she said, her voice carrying a gentle power. Leah, do you want to say anything before we begin? Leah hesitated, then nodded. She stood, her dress rustling, voice barely above a whisper. I used to think family was something you were born with. But now I know. It's something you choose, and it's people who choose you, even when you're scared and messy and not perfect. Madison chose us. She never gave up, not once. And Rocky never left me behind. I already call Madison Mom at home. I want it to be for real. A hush fell over the room. Madison blinked back tears, heart swelling. Judge Alvarez smiled, eyes warm. Madison, is there anything you'd like to say? Madison stood, her voice trembling but strong. Family can start in the most broken places. I found Leah and Sammy when they were scared and alone, but they saved me just as much as I saved them. They gave me purpose, joy, a reason to hope. Rocky showed us all what loyalty looks like. I promise to love and protect these children for the rest of my life. We are already a family. Today just makes it official." The judge nodded. "Leah, Sammy, do you want Madison to be your mom?" Leah nodded fiercely, tears streaming down her cheeks. Sammy echoed her, voice small but sure. "Yes, Mama!" Rocky barked, startling laughter from the whole courtroom. Judge Alvarez laughed too, wiping her eyes. "Then by the power vested in me by the state of New Mexico, I declare Madison Carter the legal mother of Leah and Samuel Carter. Congratulations to your family." The room erupted in applause. Leah flung her arms around Madison, who scooped her and Sammy up, hugging them both so tightly it felt like they might never let go. Rocky leapt up, licking Leah's face, tail wagging so hard it thumped against the bench. Neighbors snapped photos. The animal shelter director wept openly, and even Judge Alvarez came down to shake their hands, whispering, "Take care of each other." Later, as everyone spilled out onto the courthouse steps, sunlight dazzling and bright, Madison stood for a moment and simply breathed. She looked at Leah and Sammy, at Rocky beside them, and knew they were exactly where they belonged. They took photos on the courthouse lawn, Sammy waving a tiny American flag, Leah hugging Rocky, Madison holding them all close. Strangers stopped to congratulate them, inspired by the sight of a new family formed not by blood, but by choice, by love, and by the stubborn will to keep going when hope seems lost. Afterward, Madison took them all for ice cream, chocolate for Leah, strawberry for Sammy, and a plain cone for Rocky, who gobbled it with joy. The whole day felt wrapped in wonder, as if every hardship, every night spent afraid and alone, had led to this dazzling, ordinary, extraordinary moment. That evening, they held a little party at home. Madison cooked a big dinner, and friends filled the house with laughter and music. Leah helped set the table, Sammy handed out napkins, and Rocky trotted underfoot, never letting them out of his sight. After dinner, as candles flickered and the stars began to peep through the window, Madison tapped her glass for quiet. "I want to thank you all for believing in us," she said, voice thick with emotion. "Our story started in a dark place, but you helped us find our way. If you ever wonder if you can make a difference, remember Rocky, Leah, and Sammy. One rescue, one act of kindness, can change everything. Don't turn away from need. Every act of kindness is the start of something bigger than you can imagine." The room grew silent, everyone moved by the words. Leah slipped her hand into Madison's. "You made us a family, Mom." Madison squeezed her hand, eyes shining. "We made each other a family." As the guests left, promising to visit, Madison led the children and Rocky outside to the porch. The night air was soft and warm. Leah, Sammy, and Rocky pressed close, gazing up at the stars. Madison wrapped them in her arms, holding them tight. "Whatever happens next," she whispered, "we'll face it together." They stepped down from the porch into the night, the courthouse doors now far behind, but the future open and bright. Rocky trotted ahead, tail high, a symbol of loyalty, hope, and second chances. Their story would ripple through Santa Fe and beyond. It would remind everyone who heard it that family can be built from brokenness, that scars are not shameful but proof of survival, and that the most important thing is to show up for each other, again and again. And so, with laughter trailing in their wake and Rocky leading the way, Madison, Leah, and Sammy moved forward, no longer lost, but found, forever a family.